Welcome again to everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Dorothy Hanna, and joining me is Barbara Williams, who we work together on the administration of the Ibn Khaldun Fellowship here at MIT. And our special guest is IBK Fellow Dr. Deemah Dabbagh, who is working in biomedical research, can I say? And is going to share more information with us after our presentation introducing the Khaldun Fellowship, about her experiences with IBK and a little bit about the research she's working on. If you have questions, please hold them until the end of the presentation, and then we're going to devote most of this time to questions. So we'll have the option to either open the camera and ask them yourself, or to put them in the chat. And without further ado, the overview of what we'll be presenting today: a little bit about the IBK program history, what's so special about MIT, an overview of the fellowship itself, and what you're all here for, how to apply, and then Q&A. The program was founded through a partnership with King Fahd University for Petroleum and Minerals. At the time, as most of you know, there were only men at KFUPM. And when MIT formed a collaboration with KFUPM, part of the agreement was that something needed to be done for women, and the Ibn Khaldun Fellowship was established out of that collaboration. Since then, Aramco has been a sponsor of the program, and in 2018, CAS, the King Abdulaziz City for Science and Technology, and MIT signed a 10-year agreement, and you can see a lovely photo of us celebrating 10 years of the program at CAS. A little overview of the impact of the fellowship. We have had 55 fellows to date, more than 8 patents, but I'm still waiting on some people to give me their actual patent information. Over 100 publications, and in terms of leadership roles, over half our fellows are in leadership roles in Saudi Arabia, in both government and academia. And we also have bridge fellows who are devoted to establishing strong connections between the kingdom and partner universities abroad. You might be thinking, what's so special about MIT? Why would I leave wherever I am now and come to MIT for a year or two? MIT is known as an innovation hub, and you could say in 2023, MIT secured about 1 patent per day. And when you think about the global impact of MIT, the annual revenue of all the different companies and innovations and everything that come out of MIT is about 2 trillion, which puts it next to Canada as one of the world's largest economies. One of the things that makes me really passionate about being at MIT is MIT's mission statement. We seek to develop in each member of the MIT community the ability and passion to work wisely, creatively, and effectively for the betterment of humankind. And I think that's something I imagine I share with all of you, is this desire to work for the betterment of humankind. And we hope that our fellowship empowers and advances people on their journey to do that really effectively. Another really cool aspect of MIT that makes it stand out is how interdisciplinary it is. And one example of that is through all the interdepartmental shared research facilities. And one that Barbara and I got to visit recently is MIT Nano, which is one of the only places in the world where you can do some of these nano procedures. And yeah, it's quite amazing. And, undergrads use it. People from all over MIT, as well as visitors from across the world, come to use the clean rooms and nanotechnology development spaces there. Another amazing thing about MIT that helps make it such a center for innovation is its location in Kendall Square. And in this photo, you can see across the river at the top of the screen is Boston. And then on the lower part, where MIT is located, there's so many different businesses as well as MIT labs that are really close and have that proximity to generate lots of ideas. That makes it sort of the place where people are really looking to see what is the future of innovation. This is another view of that same photo showing all the different types of companies you can see at the bottom. The red buildings are MIT, green buildings are energy companies, yellow is data and IT, biopharma is in blue, and then venture capital in a different color of green, I guess. So there's just lots and lots and lots of people who want to invest in innovation all packed together in a very small, it takes about 20 minutes, half an hour to walk from here, one side of this to the photo to the other. Right in the middle of all of this excitement, energy, focus on innovation is our fellowship program. So we bring fellows, Saudi Arabian women, to MIT for 1 to 2 years to have the research, to do hands-on research with an MIT faculty member. And the fellows are 5 per year. They come from top PhD programs in Saudi Arabia, the United States, the UK, but we've also had fellows from PhDs in Australia and Japan join us. And currently we accept 8.4% of those who apply, which is more competitive than MIT graduate programs, less competitive than MIT undergraduate programs, but overall very competitive. And we represent over 17 Saudi institutions and cities. Once the fellows get to MIT, and this is a big question people ask us, is my discipline qualified to be part of the fellowship? We accept people in any program that MIT faculty are working in. And so far, over the 50 fellows, we've put people in over 20 different departments all across MIT. So anything that MIT faculty are working in, we can accept a fellow in that field. And just to see all the beautiful faces of the faculty member who've partnered with us, and if you're trying to figure out who would be a good faculty match for you, a starting point, there's several starting points, but one could be going on our ibk.mit.edu website and looking and seeing who previous fellows have worked with. Another important aspect of the fellowship is all the professional development opportunities. There is a small allowance that helps with professional development, and this takes on many different forms. You could use all of your funding to pay for a class with MIT Professional Education or Harvard Business School, or you could use it to learn a new programming language or a course in lab management or attend a conference or a workshop. And not only are there paid opportunities, but some of the best opportunities are free. And I just updated this slide recently to really highlight some of these free opportunities. Our fellows love the Kaufman Teaching Certificate Program. And another one that I just added recently, was the LEAPS, which is this Leadership and Professional Strategies and Skills Program, which is another really intensive leadership development program free at MIT. And I'm going to turn it over to Barbara for the second half of the presentation.
Absolutely. So one of the additional benefits of our program beyond the opportunity to conduct research and leading labs is the opportunity for networking and collaboration. So one of the things that Dorothy and I work very hard on is creating opportunities for fellows who come to MIT to connect with one another, in addition to connecting with their labs. So we host an orientation and a welcome event each year so that fellows can get to know one another right away. We have area cultural trips and activities, including an annual tubing event, including celebrating iftar and attending cultural festivals. The variety of opportunities for connection is vast and something that we spend a lot of time on. An additional benefit of the program in terms of being based in Boston is that Boston and particularly Cambridge have excellent resources for children. So the schools are free. The city of Cambridge was the first public school system to officially recognize EAD. And MIT also provides a supplement to help with childcare costs for young children. So it is an excellent location for both your professional development and the educational benefit of any children that you might bring with you. So here's the big question. How do you apply? What is the process for applying to become an Ibn Khaldun Fellow? So we have very clear criteria. The first one is that you have to be a Saudi Arabian citizen. You might be a Saudi Arabian citizen who is doing their PhD in the UK, in Australia, in the United States, but as long as your citizenship is Saudi Arabian, where you're getting your PhD does not matter. You have to have an excellent command of spoken and written English. All of the labs at MIT are English focused. So being able to eloquently communicate both verbally and in writing is essential for success here. You have to have a demonstrated ability to conduct research, 2 or more publications in peer-reviewed journals. You have to match with an MIT faculty who has current research in your area. And you have to have completed your PhD within 6 years before the program start date. So if you are applying this year to come next year, you need to be sure that you have completed your PhD between September 1st, 2019 and August 31st, 2025. If you don't fall within that range, then you are ineligible to apply for the program. MIT only allows us to accept postdocs within 6 years of accomplishing their degree. And if you haven't finished your PhD, you of course can't come for a postdoctoral experience. So what makes a strong application? One of the most important things that we are looking at in our applicants is finding out the impact that they have made. What is the clear contribution that you have made scientifically that benefits humanity? So even though you probably worked on a team as a researcher, none of us is alone in lab, it's important that you do your best to make clear what your specific contribution was to the field of science. You describe the impact of your current or recent research, your area of expertise, and then you also need to back up this impact through recommendations describing research outcomes and ability. I think one of the things that is often surprising for applicants is that the strongest applications are not necessarily from the highest, most important individual, right? So you might know the president of your university and you're like, oh, they're such a big name. I really need to get them to write a letter. But what matters more to us is that the people who are writing your letter can speak to the strengths of your research. So the best people to write the letter of recommendation for you are going to be people who are familiar with your research, can talk in detail about the work that you've done together, can talk about your experience in lab or collaborating with other people. A very holistic view of your success. So this could be your faculty advisor, this could be a professor, a postdoc, a research scientist, somebody that you've spent a lot of time collaborating with. But whoever your letters come from, the most valuable thing for us to know is what are your research outcomes, what are your ability, and what is the experience like for people who have specifically worked with you. What else? So in addition to being able to describe your past and current impact of research, we also want to know what it is that you hope to research. We want an organized plan for research of what you'd like to do at MIT. So what impact are you hoping to make, and what faculty have the best research match with these goals? So we're not looking for a fully developed research proposal. You don't need to, you have a word count. I think it's 500 words. But we want to know what it is you're passionate about, what it is that you think you want to research, how that research might vary depending on what faculty member you're matched with. So finding MIT faculty, as Dorothy said, you can refer to the faculty page on the IBK website to get an idea of faculty members that we've worked with, but it is by no means the full comprehensive list, right? Any faculty member at MIT conducting research in your field is somebody that we can reach out to as a potential connection. So search the MIT website, read some of the faculty's recent published papers to find out if they're a good match. You know, the faculty who are reviewing your application are going to be looking for a clear plan of what you think you want to do in their labs. They want to know how working together might bring new knowledge or breakthroughs in your shared research field. So really be thinking about this as you are putting together your plan for research. So with that said, the IBK deadline. So the application closes November 19th at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so Boston time. And you have to get 2 letters of recommendation, as stated previously, by people who can speak to your research accomplishments. And those are due December 2nd at 9 a.m. So you'll fill out the application form, provide your CV, your most significant publication, the one that is the greatest impact on the field, that most eloquently represents you as a researcher. And then you have to have 2 recommendation letters. So once you have submitted your IBK application, you will be brought to a new screen with a form to request letters from your faculty members or whoever it is that's going to be doing those letters. You'll be able to enter their name, their email, their affiliation. So if they're, with KSU or whomever. And then you need to click the green button that specifically says send email. If you don't click it, they're not going to get the invite. So you'll fill it out, add your recommender, and then hit send email. You can also bookmark this page on your internet browser to come back and see if your recommenders have uploaded their letters at a later point. So once you've submitted, the general timeline is that in December, the Ibn Khaldun team, myself, Dorothy, Professor Kamal, and MIT faculty members will review your applications. The CACS team also reviews all of the applications. So your application will be reviewed both in the US and in Saudi Arabia by our sponsor. In January, we make decisions about top candidates and we invite them for video interviews that take place with both the IBK team and the CACS team present. In February, we give acceptance or feedback letters. So if you apply and you don't get the opportunity to come, but you're looking for feedback because you're only in your first year out of your PhD and you think you want to apply again next year, you get the opportunity to ask us for feedback and we'll be more than happy to provide that. In March through May, all of our accepted fellows meet with potential faculty. So Dorothy and I independently reach out to the MIT faculty that you're interested in working with. We set that up, we give you the opportunity to connect, and then your lab matching decisions will be made. So we help assist you with all of the placement and in all of the faculty connections once you've been accepted to the program. Once you've decided that you want to work with a faculty member, that faculty member has decided they want to work with you, then we start the visa and MIT appointment process for all of our fellows to then arrive in September and get to know their lab at MIT. So if you're looking for more information beyond what we've just shared, you can visit our website or email us at ibk@mit.edu. Dorothy and I predominantly answer those emails, but we also have a third team member, Isabel Welch, who often helps. So you'll hear from one of us. We are usually very swift to respond. Please don't hesitate if you have questions. And thank you so much. It's candidates like you who make IBK so remarkable. And we're really grateful that you've taken the time to meet with us today. I am going to hand this back over to Dorothy for the Q&A.
Thank you, Barbara. I see some questions are already coming in. Before we do the Q&A, we are going to get to hear from Dr. Deemah Dabbagh. And I'm going to ask Deemah the first question, which has 3 parts. Can you introduce yourself, including your research background, which lab you work in at MIT, and what inspired you to pursue a research career and has kept you going?
Absolutely. So hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. And I'm really happy to be here in this webinar. So I, back home, and I'm an assistant professor at the Department of Clinical Lab Sciences of King Saud University. Here at MIT, I'm working in the lab of Dr. Brandon Dacosky at the Reagan Institute, which is a multi-institute research center that collaborates between MIT, Mass General Hospital, and Harvard. And in the Dacosky lab, what we do, it has a very immune engineering focus, which is very interesting. So what we do is we bioengineer antibodies that we get from patients, and we try to make them better. We try to make them bind better to infectious agents like viruses for use as potential therapeutics. So my background was not bioengineering before coming to MIT. This is a very new field for me, and it's part of what makes me very excited to be here. My background is virology, with a focus in virus-host interaction. So there is a bit of an overlap between my background and Dr. Dacosky's work, but still everything that I am doing in the lab and will be doing is pretty novel and exciting for me. And now, as to the second part of the question, what has inspired me to pursue a career in research? I think it was my just being drawn to public health from a very early age, which this is what made me start my career as a clinical lab scientist, where I was diagnosing or helping in the diagnosis of different diseases by analyzing patient samples. And then very early after that, I realized that even though I was doing a meaningful contribution to public health by being a lab technologist, I really wanted to be more involved in finding solutions to public health challenges. So this transitioned me to start my grad school journey. And it was really in grad school, specifically in my PhD program, where I got this, I developed this deep interest in novel antiviral strategies. So my career in research really started with grad school. And I guess what keeps me going is, just knowing that I am being part of a research that is helping to address or to find real world solutions to public health problems in any way. Just contributing to that cause in any way is what keeps me going.
I feel like going through PhD and then even thinking about Ibn Khaldun and continuing with research is so tough. So I love to hear what inspires people to keep going. So thank you for sharing that. Can you tell us about your experience applying to Ibn Khaldun and any advice you have for applicants?
Yes. So I would say it was a pleasant experience overall. It was time consuming, but with good planning, it was manageable. The application is long. Because it's long, my advice is to start early as possible. And actually, one of the most important things that I think the applicants should start doing is contact your referees as soon as possible. Like, I would actually recommend that this is the first thing to do when you're starting the application, just because you want to have this time buffer, in case someone didn't get back to you, someone didn't get back in time, that you have a plan B to contact someone else, or you just give them sufficient time to write you a recommendation letter. And as Barbara mentioned, make sure to choose people who can speak to your abilities in research and who can speak to your suitability to the program. I feel like this is really important. Another important thing is to also take your time in looking at the profiles of the faculty that you want to work with, like the research profiles. Definitely read some of their recent publications just to get an idea of how your goals align with the type of research that they're doing. So I feel like this is something that you want to do also early on. Not to take away from the, importance of the working on the essays and everything, but I feel like start with these two things and then definitely give your time to go through the essays. I feel that the essays are a little similar to a PhD statement of purpose. So that was not really a very challenging thing, just because pretty sure that all the applicants here have experience with writing personal statements. And also the IBK statements are very structured. Each one has a very specific question that you need to address. So I feel like having them structured this way makes them less daunting than writing like a general personal statement. So I feel like the takeaway from all of this is start early, make sure that you give your referees enough time to write you good letters, and make sure that you choose suitable referees to write you the letters.
This is great advice. Thank you. And final question. I know you've only been at MIT for almost a couple months. What has been the most challenging part of the experience? And then what's been your favorite part or something new you've learned?
So the most challenging experience or the most challenging part, I feel, is just starting at a new place, which happens every time you transition or start a new job. So this is something that it takes time to acclimate to a new work environment, a new team. So I think this is one of the big challenges. Another challenge is that I am joining a lab where a lot of the work, most of the work really is very new. To me, it's an entirely new field. So that is also a challenge. It's challenging, that part is challenging, but it's also what makes my time here at MIT exciting, because I'm learning new things.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, we're so glad that you're with us. And if you have questions for Deemah specifically, please do put them in the chat or raise your hand. And I see a lot of questions that are directly to me, which I'll try and keep up with. If I miss your question, please put it in the chat for everyone so that both Barbara and I can see them and we can make sure that we're answering all the questions. So I will start with the top of my list of questions, but if you have a specific question for Deemah, or if your question's been missed, please post it for everybody. So first question, do you require specific academic rank for the nominated faculty? The requirement in rank for MIT faculty who you can work with is they have to be a principal investigator. So a senior research scientist most likely would be a principal investigator. The director of an MIT center may or may not be a principal investigator. And if you have questions about if the faculty you want to work with meet the criteria, you can send us an email and ask, because sometimes in cases like these, it can be a little confusing. And like, for example, Deemah works at Reagan Institute, which is in between MIT, Harvard, and MGH, right? Mass General Hospital. And so she's with a faculty member who's appointed at MIT, but there's other faculty on their website who are appointed at Harvard, and we can't appoint you with the Harvard ones, only the MIT ones. So it does get complicated. Second question, can current assistant professors obtain the fellowship if they're within 6 years of their PhD graduation date? Do they have to quit their professorship position to be awarded this fellowship? The answer to that from the MIT side is no. And Deemah, that's the situation you're in. Do you want to say a little about your experience with that?
Yes. So what was the question again? If it's 6 years?
If you're an assistant professor, do you have to quit your job to come be a fellow?
Oh, absolutely not. So it depends on, I don't know, it depends on the university, but I don't really think that this is something that any university would require their faculty to do. You can either apply for a sabbatical to go and complete your fellowship and then return. Sometimes sabbaticals have different terms in different universities. Like they have a different, sometimes it's called like I don't know what it's called. Can I say it in Arabic?
Of course, yes, please.
Sometimes it's called رحلة علمية. So it depends on the university and the department. It's going to have different terms, but it's essentially very similar to the sabbatical application process. You apply, it has to be discussed within the department first, and then it has to be discussed by the dean, and you know, it has to go up the hierarchy essentially, and it's going to be it has to be approved. But after that, I think it should be okay. I do know another fellow, Hadil, right? Who also works for King Saud University, and she did not have to quit her job. She also applied for sabbatical. And I think also Iman, another fellowship who is working, another fellow, sorry, who is from, is she from the University of Al Qura? Dorothy, do you know? Yeah, so Jamiat Al Qura, who also applied for sabbatical. So I don't really think it's an issue that you have to quit, that you have to leave your job.
It's pretty rare that someone has to, in general, people are able to
Someone
come.
wrote Ittisal Ilmi. Yes, that's the term I was looking for. Yes, exactly. Ittisal Ilmi. Yeah.
Thank you for that. It's always so helpful to hear like your actual experience. Another question, are there any obligations in terms of employment for fellows after accepting and graduating from the fellowship, completing the fellowship? No, Ibn Khaldun and CACS, the sponsor, do not have any obligations for employment. It's completely at your discretion and your opportunity after the fellowship. If I had previous training with an MIT associated professor, can I have them as a recommender? So this gets a little bit into what Barbara was talking about before. You want your recommendation letters to come from people who know you best. So you can have an MIT professor who you've worked with recommend you for sure. And it depends on, you know, if they don't really remember you or that you didn't work closely, it might not be a very good letter. You might want to prioritize a letter from somebody who has more direct experience with you. And then the first question that I see is for everyone. What are the statements that are required in the application? From the presentation, it seemed that we only need a motivation letter. Could you please elaborate more on the essays? Good question. We require 3 statements that are all short. And one is about your past research, what you've done. One is about your sort of research skills and who you are as a researcher, since sometimes that's a little different than actually what you did maybe as your PhD research. And then the final one is about your future research, what you would like to do at MIT. I think that one is the trickiest because you're not sure who you're going to be working with at MIT and what you're going to be working on. You can say, if I work with this professor, I might like to do this. If I work with that professor, I might like to do that. And there's also an aspect to it. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has 4 research development and innovation areas of focus. And you do need to mention how your research applies to those 4 areas. But especially economies of the future, covers pretty much everything. So your research will fit somewhere, but that is an aspect of that. And as we're answering questions, if you have like a follow-up question, let us know. Anything that sort of should the proposal fit with faculty research that we would like to work with? This is sort of an interesting area, and Deemah, maybe you can speak to this a little bit because go ahead.
Yeah. I feel that honestly, I did not 100%, my proposal did not 100% fit with faculty, but now in hindsight, I actually feel that it's better to have your proposal fit fit the research of the faculty that you are interested in working with, just because it gives them a better idea or a more clear idea of how your goals align with their goals, how, both parties have shared goals. And I'm not saying that I didn't have shared goals in my proposal. It's just that I feel like that's why I feel like it's important to really read the recent papers of the faculty that you're going to work with, and try to write your research goals in a way that, you're showing that there are shared goals between what you want to do and between the lab, and that your research projects somehow aligns with the research projects that are already ongoing in the labs that you want to work with, if that makes sense. I feel that really helps the faculty, helps convince the faculty that you're a right fit for their lab.
Yeah, we send your actual application to the faculty to read, and I have had faculty say, like, why does she want to work with me? I don't really understand why she's interested in me. So if you imagine your audience is this faculty member you want to work with, and write it in such a way that they'll understand, like, even if you're like, oh, I do chemistry and they're in mechanical engineering, but they're working on a project that requires a chemist, so I would fit into their mechanical engineering. That's the cross interdisciplinary kind of thing that MIT creates space for. But if you don't explain why, then they'll just be like, well, I'm not a chemist, I don't know what to do with you. You have to give them your vision a little bit. I also, Dr. Shrouk Al-Sanan, who is one of our Ibn Khaldun Fellows, has joined our presentation today. So if you have questions for her, she's also a wonderful resource and is here with us. So please take advantage of that. And let's see. Oh, I started my PhD in 2019. So the start date for your PhD doesn't matter. What's important is, will you graduate by September 2025? So if you're not going to graduate until 2026, wait and apply the year after. But if you're going to defend and be completely graduated by September 1st, 2025, then this is the year to apply for you. And then apply to this program. No, this is a program only for women. Let's see. And if anybody wants to raise their hand and ask us a question, that's great too. Okay.
Sorry, I don't know how to raise the hand.
Oh, okay. I think it's in React, but sure, go ahead, Nadia. We'd love to hear from you.
So my questions are related to the research. I see that in the requirements you're asking for 2+ publications. So does the publication must be in like a Q1, Q2 journal? Does this matter for you? Also, how many publications you said this fellowship is competitive. When do you, I want to ask this in another way. Like, if I apply with 2 publications and someone else applies with 5 publications, does this mean that you will take the person with 5 publications? And my third question, I have published a review article, and I also published 2 studies, research, like an actual research. With the review article considered as a publication to apply for this fellowship?
These are good questions. To go in reverse order, it does need to be peer reviewed. So the review article, it depends on if it's peer reviewed or not. I don't know if review articles are typically peer reviewed. And then in terms of, it's very difficult to compare publications. So if you have 2 amazing publications and somebody else has 5 just okay publications, the amazing publications will count more than the just okay publications. And this is why we share your application with faculty, because the journals you publish in are so specific to the field, and the faculty are going to know, oh, they published in this journal on this topic. That's super interesting. I really care about that. And then maybe somebody else has 10 applications and the faculty is like, well, they're all boring publications. I don't care to work in this research area. And then that counts differently. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have one more question. How is the kids covered? This is my final question.
Good question. So from different perspectives, we pay a stipend that is enough, but not, it's going to be tight if you bring kids with you. From a visa perspective, if the US government issues you a visa, they will give you a visa for your kids too. And then there's various other benefits MIT provides for people with kids. So let's say there is resources for kids, but it's also expensive to live in Cambridge. And if you have kids, that will obviously be an additional expense that will make finances a little tight.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's great to have people ask questions on camera or with the voice. So please go ahead, other people, if you're not sure how to ask. Is it the React that has the hand raised? Yes. If you click on the React, which is the heart icon, you should be able to raise your hand, but maybe not everybody has it. Okay, question about modifying the application after submission. If you would like to modify your application, please email ibk.mit.edu and we will try to assist you. And do we need to be employed or sponsored by a university to be eligible? No, you do not need to be employed or sponsored by a university. Some people join straight out of their PhD and they have not found a job yet, for example. What stage of applying is the proposal required? Oh, we don't require a proposal until after you're accepted. Oh, and someone's raising their hand. So Arfan, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you guys for organizing this session. I have a question about the nature of the postdoc work, across all the fellows you've had over the years. Is it more, do you think it's more individual? Like do these projects, this fellow works under the PI directly and do all their work individually, or is it more collaborative and they work with other members of the lab or of the team?
It's a good question. Do you want to talk about your experience a little bit, Deemah?
Yes, absolutely. So, and again, I don't know if this can be generalized to all other disciplines, but for biomed at least, and what I have been hearing from my other fellows in bioinformatics, research is always a collaborative effort. Yes, you do have tasks that you are expected to complete on your own, but it's always collaborative. It's always you're always part of a team, and yes, you are working under the supervision of a faculty member, but the faculty really serves as an advisor, as someone who guides you, and as someone who helps you, for example, troubleshoot any challenges or any roadblocks that you're having in your research. So I feel like it's a combination, but I would say it's a combination, but it leans more towards team effort than it is as just working solo. It's never really working solo. You're always with people. You're running experiments. You might be running experiments on your own, but you're never really on your own, if that makes sense. And I feel like that is really the beauty of it. You know, you're always collaborating, you're learning from other postdocs. Sometimes you even learn with grad students who have been in the lab, you know, longer than you have. So I feel like for the most part, it's a collaborative effort rather than just individual work.
I think that's a great answer. Arfan, does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
From the chat, for research expertise, do you mean in terms of technical skills I have mastered in research area or the overall research areas I have worked in? So the first question that says your previous research is more like the overall areas you've worked in. And then to separate it out, if you have technical expertise that's different from the research you've actually done that you think might apply. For example, if you're going to work in a different lab than the kind, or you want to work in a different lab than the kind of work you've done in the past, you could say, I did my research on butterflies, but I also know everything about sharks. So when I want to work with you on sharks, that makes sense. That's the sort of idea there. Can fellows accept other funding sources? Overall, yes, it depends, I guess is the answer. So if you have a specific question, you can email ibk@mit.edu and ask us about that one.
I'm not sure if I think Brandon or Dr. Dukoski was talking to me the other day about, and I think a lot of PIs do that, especially if you're planning to stay or if you know that you're going to stay for the whole 2 years. Sometimes you can apply with your PI, you can apply for a grant, like for additional funding. So you can write grants with your PI and you can apply to grants with your PI to get additional funding. So this can be an option in some labs with some PIs.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Okay. For the impact of past research, should we focus on the impact of our previous PhD work, or can we tell more about the overall impact throughout our journey? I think the impact is the important part of this. So whatever you think is the most impactful, Barbara, do you have anything to add on? Feel free to add if you have things to add. Like, does that sound?
Yeah, I think it could be an example of a very specific part of your PhD research that was deeply impactful. It could be an overview of what you have generally contributed to the field over your period of time. It kind of depends on what you feel in the span of your PhD or in the span of your work since your PhD, if you are employed post-PhD, that you feel has been the greatest scientific contribution to the community.
Agreed. Okay. Is it allowed to apply for more than 1 year if not awarded the first time? Yes, we often accept people who apply more than once on their second or even third time applying. Is it important to attach a patent with my application? Does it make a difference? It really depends on your field. If you have a patent and that's great, but a lot of people's research, you know, they're not going to ever maybe have a patent. So it's totally dependent on your research area.
Adjacent to that, I have a direct message that inquires whether or not published conference papers are considered peer review publications. Some of this isn't, it depends. So a lot of the major conferences, for example, IEEE, require all publications for their conference papers to go through the peer review process prior to publication. I think if it is a significant conference, it is often peer reviewed. If it's a conference that just quickly reviews the abstract, you know, and allows you to publish, then it might not fall into that. By and large, if we have questions over whether or not something is peer reviewed, we end up following up with the applicant.
That's a great point. How can I know if the recommendations have been sent after submitting the application? We do have a form where you submitted the references for the recommendation letters that you should be able to go back and check. If you have trouble with that, you can email us and we will help you. And this is a good question. Do you encourage fresh PhDs to apply, or do you think getting more experience is better? Yes, in the past, a large number of the fellows did have more experience, but now it is more typical for us to accept people straight out of your PhD. So if you're in the final year of your PhD, it is an excellent time to apply. Like a true PhD is directly after your doctoral research. Looking at this question, is there a preference for certain fields over others? Do you take diversity in the fields into consideration? It seems like you don't have many fellows in the Sloan School of Management. I'm wondering why that is. Good question. We accept the top candidates, and out of the top candidates, we do try to have some diversity, but that's sort of, if the top candidates far and away are all in one area, we'll end up taking them because accepting the highest quality candidates is the most important to us. In terms of Sloan, we haven't had very many people apply who are interested in working in Sloan, or there's so many different, like a couple of years ago, we had a fellow who we thought might get placed in Sloan, and she ended up getting placed in the Socio-Technical Research Center, which is another place where people think about data. So there's just a lot of different ways that people can be placed at MIT, but you should not apply because we haven't had many fellows in Sloan in the past, because there's no reason why you can't be placed in Sloan. It's part of MIT, and it's a great place to expand on your research. And if you have more questions about our answers, please feel free to chime in. Okay, what defines the duration of the fellowship? Is it by the choice of the fellow, PI, or IBK? Does the fellow know from the start how long they will be working as part of IBK? When you're accepted, you are guaranteed the first year, or we're accepting you for 1 year. And most fellows are renewed for a second year if they request it. But it's a combination of the fellow wants to stay on, their PI wants to keep them, and CACS wants to keep funding them. So all three factors work together in the decision about the second year. And do we need to contact an MIT PI to match with them before applying? No, you do not. And MIT PIs are really busy. That's part of the value of Ibn Khaldun, is that we help you match with a PI, and they get an email from inside MIT, because they may well not even notice your email. It's not personal. Sheikha, please ask your question.
Hello, thank you for this presentation. I'm probably going to repeat my question. Because I started my PhD on July the 1st, 2019. So by next year, I'm going to pass the 6 years requirement. So am I going to be eligible?
Important thing is your graduation date. When do you expect to complete your PhD?
I've finished my PhD.
You did finish your PhD. You're done.
I did.
And what year did you graduate?
This year, 2024.
Oh, you're definitely eligible. You should apply.
Thank you very much.
So we have just
I wanted to just circle back to the question, what defines the duration of the fellowship? I want to add additionally to what Dorothy mentioned, is that sometimes if you are already working at an institution and you're not leaving your job, sometimes the institution that you work for also dictates how long you will spend at the fellowship. So as an assistant professor, I have been given the green light to stay for a year. It is up for negotiation, but they have not greenlit the second year for me yet. So that's also something to consider about the duration. Yeah.
That's an excellent point. Thank you. Barbara?
So there's a question that says, if I already have a group of professors from my university to collaborate with, can they join me in the MIT group? And the short answer is no. And the longer answer is, while they might not be able to join you at MIT, it's not a you get in and you bring all your friends with you. If your MIT faculty member is interested in extending that collaboration to work with them through you, you're welcome to do that. So you can carry on both internal and external collaborations with other researchers while you're at MIT. It just depends on whether or not your faculty supports that.
We have another question in the chat. Does pre-doctoral training after candidacy help for acceptance in this program? I'm not actually sure. I'm not what that is. So
I think
is that something you're familiar with? Go ahead.
I think in the sense that if you have been properly trained for pre-doctoral research, you're probably better at interviewing, you're probably better at filling out applications, but specifically noting that you have put that training on your application will not necessarily influence the success of that application.
Okay. Does IBK encourage pivoting the research area? It's really up to you. If you want to pivot your research area, we support you, and I guess it's up to you and the faculty members. We support you if that's of interest of you, and if you can communicate about it in a way that is compelling to faculty. But we wouldn't force anybody. If you're already excited about your research area and you just want to stay in that lane, that's great too. And then a question about the stipend, if it will be taxed. We are uncertain. We think it will start to be taxed, but we're not sure. So we can't tell you for sure what the stipend will be until we send acceptance letters. We will make it clear at that point. But the stipend is like a salary. So it's just a chunk of money that you can decide to spend on whatever you decide is needed for your living expenses. If that doesn't answer your question, please go ahead and talk to us ask a clarifying question or send us an email. We're reaching the end of the hour we set aside for this. We're happy to stay on a few more minutes if there's questions. Deemah, I don't know if you need to go because I know you have a very busy schedule. But unless there's any last minute questions, we'll wrap things up. But yeah, thank you to all of you for being here and asking questions, and we can't wait to get your applications. And please, if you have specific questions, we're always happy to correspond with you and try and figure out what the best next step is for you.
I just want to end with that IBK is a really great program for professional development, for enhancing your research skills, and just for personal growth, really. So I'm really happy that you joined us, and I hope that I'm really encouraging you to apply because it really is a great opportunity.
Thank you, Dean.